Here, I'm
Yeah.
just I'm going to turn it on. And then since we're on Zoom, I'm going to pull up my, let's see. I'm going to pull up my Facebook so we can at least see the message, comments on that,
Sure.
on that page. Irene, Kuijt. Okay, boom. Here we go. Is it on? Yeah, it's on. Okay, it's going to take another minute and a half or so.
Sure.
For people to come in. It's good to have you here. I'm happy that you reached out, and I can't remember everything about the messages that you sent, but it doesn't matter because this is just how we do it anyway. We'll just get to know each other in front of everybody.
Sure.
But it's been interesting to me, obviously, watching everything that's going on in the movie that's being played, but because obviously the real substance of our experiences and our personal experience and our personal awareness and expansion. But I was a little bit shocked because of the nature of what I perceived, and I would imagine many people perceived, of the Netherlands being a very liberal, kind of open type of persona. But I was a little bit surprised to see the level of restrictions being placed on the people of the Netherlands. It just kind of threw me back a little bit, and it just goes to show you, it's kind of like Australia. I mean, I think many people would agree with me that before all this happened, we thought Australia was one of the coolest places you could live, but they thought they had a lot of freedoms, and come to find out that it was just a wolf in sheep's clothing kind of thing. But yeah, I thought was that a shock to you as being?
No, not at all.
No?
No, because it's so interesting, because we're really at this point where it really becomes clear to really listen.
Yeah.
And to really be able to interpret what is really being said. Because if you really listen carefully, we have all free will.
Yes.
We can all choose, and it's all by our behavior how the rules will be set. If we and it's not like behave well, but like if you know internally what to do in certain situations, you don't need any rules. And this is like, if we start to misbehave, we need to set rules. And then the interesting thing that did surprise me, though, is like how people start to follow a certain belief. And I think this is the truth. And the truth has never been, that type of truth has never been really said. It's being like offered, like you can choose this truth. And then people went after it. And it was, to me, it was very interesting to see the politicians making the announcements. And if you really listen carefully, it's almost like a pretension of what it's going to be. And then people think, oh, they're going to do this. No. But the thing is, no, that's not really what they said. So in a way, it worked.
Yeah.
It's like, this is what we're doing. And it's like, that's not the whole truth. So in a way, there were some people, not everybody, were successful in making a make-believe. And once you're on that train, it's like, oh, we can't go back now. We have to keep going.
Yeah.
And it's like, it doesn't even make sense, because where are you going anyway?
Right.
Where are you going with it? It's like there's.
Well, you're right, because this is all about what these last 9 years? Will be 10 years since 2012 next year, and it's all been about the truth coming out, right? Like, and we all know this on a personal level because we've all had to deal with our shadows and all that stuff. But but it's interesting what you're saying, because it makes you realize how it's always been. And you're right. It's not because this is a law or this is a mandate. It's more a suggestion.
Exactly.
It's presented as something, let's just say, you have to do, but it's really not. If you, like you said, if you really listen to the words, even the word mandate, that's not a law.
Yeah.
That's, you know what I mean? I mean, so it's, and it's creating some really, starting to create some pretty powerful collective movements. I picked up a little bit about Europe, in Austria, Netherlands, Germany, Italy, UK, and of course, Australia. They had 100,000 people marching to their parliament this past weekend, which had been 30,000 the weekend before. I mean, so it's like people are, I've been saying this all along, and I'm not saying I'm right, but maybe we're all beating at the same vibration. We just don't know it, and it doesn't look that way. But I think there's a lot more people awake than we've given credit.
Yeah. Or you can also put it this way: maybe people don't realize they woke up because their cells are being woken up.
Yes.
It's a cellular thing, because the earth, we're connected to the earth. The earth is transitioning.
Yeah.
So everything else on it is. You may not realize it yet, but
yes,
everyone is included.
I agree with that. And I'm not saying that
party.
What's that?
That's like a surprise party. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I didn't know this. That's how come people wake up all of a sudden, because their cells are ready. It's just like, when is the moment in your daily life, in your specific time space point where you live, where it's the exact perfect moment for you to wake up?
Yeah. And I think a lot of that's
divine
happening.
Design.
Yeah. There's a little bit of a lag. I'm not trying to interrupt you.
I'm sorry.
No, it's not you. It's just the signal. No, you're right too, because and I'm not discounting what people say.
No.
But you hear a lot of people over the years talk about how we're destroying Mother Earth and how she's gonna, not do well based on how we treat, all that. And I get that. But at the same time, I'm more aligned with what you're saying, which for me, what that means is Mother Earth is our mother. She's a big girl. She's a consciousness. She's not an it or a thing.
No.
And she knows what she's doing, and she's expanding and ascending. She's changing from an atomic or cellular structure. And it's kind of like you can follow suit with her, or you can suffer or leave or whatever, but there's something bigger at work here. Yes, we have a vote through our thoughts and in the quantum field, but there's something bigger. This is happening anyway. And so, I mean, no matter what it looks like, that's why I keep I'm in awe of the people that come on the show, and they say a lot of things that are the same. And one of the things they're saying is, in so many words, no matter what it looks like, no matter what we're seeing, no matter what I'm experiencing mentally, physically, emotionally, things are getting better. Like I'm seeing magic in my life. I'm seeing synchronicity, and there's something to be said for that.
Exactly. Yeah. And sometimes you don't see the magic at some times, because you're just moving through a current which is so overwhelming that we're still connected with everything.
Yeah.
And that's a given. And sometimes you want to fight it, and sometimes it's just like, okay, well, let's just be quiet for a couple of days.
Yeah.
And until the storm is over. So you, at some moment, you will know what to do in which moment, because we're all in this orchestration. And the way I see it, and I've actually always seen it because I had vision since I was young, but I like to make it easier, to make it so I want to simplify the very difficult, insane things. But to me, how I see it in visuals, it's like a snake. He needs to shed the skin, right?
Yeah.
So what if the skin that needs to be shedded is what's being destroyed?
Yes.
So whatever you think is being destroyed is happening now, is actually speeding up the shedding of the skin. But the new, like the earth has like so many so much help, because
Yes.
it could have died. I mean, it's really it's been on the edge of dying. And I think this is why we see like the extreme light and extreme like opposite light, I would say. It's like
Right.
one that goes to the light and one still going down,
Yeah.
because we're in that transitioning zone. So that's why it's insane, because our bodies are also connected with it, like the planet. So it's totally insane.
Yeah.
total
But
craziness. But
yeah.
this is why you have all these different types of emotion. But the more the light comes in, the more you feel stable. And it's really, I notice it myself, like more and more it starts to really sink in, and you
Yeah.
see things from other perspectives, and
Yeah.
I become more human, because I want to be this kind of human. I don't want
Yeah.
to do the fake stuff. It doesn't make sense at all. It's just weird. It's just dysfunctional. This is not evolution. That's like going down the drain, basically. There's
Right.
no use of living that way, basically.
Right.
But
And then the connectivity seems to be becoming more apparent too. And all these things are changing the way we act and the way we think.
yeah,
And
yeah,
we were questioning ourselves.
yeah,
We're seeing the connectivity.
yeah,
It's beyond words. Like, just, we've had all these great sayings and all these words, and they sound really good. But I think for me, one of the biggest things that people are coming into awareness about are the life experiences that they've had that they thought were weird or something was wrong with them. And then people like you stepping up and saying, hey, this has been going on since I was a little kid. And there's a whole bunch of people out there that are experiencing the same thing. Just, we just haven't given it any weight because we were told we were crazy or that it was our imagination or things like that. So you said that when you were young, you were getting visions. I mean,
yeah.
were you awake from the first day, or did you have?
No, I do have memories from very, very young, that I was still like my parents say you cannot really remember that because you were too young for that, like I was like a baby. But I had near-death experiences when I was around 2.5 years old, 3 years, and I very vividly remember that. And I was just lying in my bed, and I just realized, like, hey, my heart stops beating. And I, even later on, I discovered people could never even feel their heart beating. And I'm like, wow, I always wanted to go inside. I always wanted to feel safe within. And that in my heart space, that's where I felt safest, because that felt protected. And
Wow.
years later, I discovered I was so extremely sensitive. I could just feel everything. But that had also to do with, me being born here, why, and the reason why. And at some moment, I just had to, I could feel how I got out of my body, how I was in this bubble of light, and hearing sounds. I'm not going to go into it too deep. Anyway, hearing the sounds, and then I would go back into the light, and then I could make a decision to go, to go, and because it felt really good. But then for me, the trigger to stay to come back is I didn't want to have my parents in pain. There was already so much suffering, and I thought don't want to do this. But this activated me to make a conscious decision to be a human with this presence, basically bringing with me. So
Now, do you? Somebody said, "Yeah, please go deep."
okay.
So,
Yeah.
so your interactions with the universe, or whatever we want to call it, have you had like different faces of the universe that have come to you, like the angelic or galactic or elemental?
Yes,
Or
yes, yeah. But that only came much later. For me, it's just, and it's related to who I am. It's just more pure presence.
yeah, I get
And so
that.
for everybody, it's different, but it started to make sense later on.
Yeah,
And so also that one thing that's been very interesting also by traveling to the light, I also saw a lot of darkness.
Yeah.
And so that, anyway, that was which was in the universe. And so that type of curiosity and, to stay away from it, and, being a child, and my curiosity as my being is, I'm curious. I always ask why. But I think that specific experience really set me up on a very young age. Plus, I'm connected with the pure presence of light. And I decide to come back in the body, in a tiny 3-year-old body, 2.5. That's extremely painful. It's excruciating.
I can imagine.
And it
I mean,
all happens when when I was lying in bed, and then the next day, I just had to go to kindergarten.
and be a human. So yeah, because we've heard of a lot of people come on the show and they talk about, I know I'm not from here. I don't want to be here. Why is there all this, distortion and such?
Yeah.
But you made reference to how hard it is, especially, I can't relate because it didn't happen to me, but at a young age, but I had I guess you would call near death, out of body. To me, it's the same thing. Same type of thing energetically. I was in that space, but what I'm referring to is I felt myself leave my body. And I felt how dense and cold the vessel was.
Yeah.
And so when I went back into my body, because you're very light, and once you leave the body, and when I came back into, I could feel it, and it felt like a coldness, a dampness, a very heaviness, and that was a bit painful. But I can't imagine going back into my body at 3 years old, still having not having any interference with my frequency at that age, right? I mean, I would imagine at 3 years old, we're all much more open. We have less conditioning and so on. So that must have been.
This was in the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a deal with different energies going on also. Yeah. And also the type of energy you're bringing, it needs to be adjusted to the body, which is like unacquainted to. So all of that stuff. And also, you have no reference point. So it's not like, oh, I'm suffering right now. It's just, of course, you feel it's painful and you don't like it. And it's like, why is this happening to me? And so also with that, I became fearful. And that's something you really don't want to be.
No.
Because when I became fearful, I started to resist. And because I was open to a certain consciousness, I also started to feel every kind of fear that ever happened on the planet. So I could tap into all the fears ever experienced right in one moment. And sometimes it was overwhelming. And so I realized now later on that I did get a lot of help, just to stay calm and just be present. And like, why? A child wants to know why. And actually that curious part, or that kind of resistant part, made it a little bit more kind of like a rebellion. It's like, why? But then, it's all of that is also taken into account. So it's never gonna worsen anything, but it's just like, shit happens, life happens, and it can be rocky, period. But it really got me into this mindset. It's like, why exactly? Why am I here? It's not like I didn't feel like I didn't belong here. It's like, why is nobody tired when they're going back to school? It's like, and where's the real school? Because it's like, I'm learning like one chicken, and one chicken is two chickens. And I'm like, where the chickens come from? Where's the egg? I had like this other presence, like, what is the meaning of everything? And here nothing meant anything, because there's no, and even I was so sensitive, like even when I would see, like my dad would paint a wood with whatever, acrylic paint or whatever kind of paint. I'm like, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Now the tree cannot breathe anymore. The wood cannot breathe anymore. You put it on there, because I could feel everything. And I was looking for access points, and I could feel every access point was clogged up.
Yeah.
So now I realize it has to do with a grid system which was faltered, if that's the right word, and plugged up, so you could not really travel the way you're supposed to travel, right?
Okay.
And it was like, why can't we just move from one space to the other? Why? I just like, why can't it? I'm stuck here. I'm like stuck in a labyrinth, and like energetically, I was like feeling it out. And at some moment, I was always staring at the sky because I love the sky, and I could just kind of like see through people or whatever. But anyway, it's not that I'm not interested in people, but I could feel the energies, or I guess. And then I was just looking at a flower in the kindergarten outside on the playground. And when I was looking on the flower, the flower still had a 0 point. So through the flower, I went through a 0 point, and I was right in the universe again.
Wow.
So this is where I felt like, being more in nature, I got my connection. And then I asked more, why am I here? What is the deal? And then I saw like every breath you would take, like with one in breath and the out breath, like a whole universe would be created, and it will be renewed.
Wow.
So that whole energy of what would happen, it was brought into my cells already. So that's where I could just walk through life, basically, with this type of unfoldment within me.
So where does that bring you today? Like how do you navigate life today? You know, I mean, because I can't even imagine what happened to you from 5 years old to today. I mean, you've obviously got a very strong connection and level of awareness. How do you approach the world? You know, how do you approach the quarantines and the restrictions, and how do you approach your personal life, you know, with those closest to you?
Yeah, so I always knew, and in a certain guidance, like, don't share that too much with anybody because they don't really get it. And I was like, why? And I very soon got it, like, oh, they're really not where I'm at. And I just knew, okay, I'm just not going to share anything because it doesn't even make sense. And I saw things, you know, it's like even with people, like if they would be angry or whatever, I just saw like, well, this is not really them. I could even see when there was children playing on the playground, and then all of a sudden they would kind of like evolve and being very, you know, interested in other things, or like knowing what type of job they would be. And I could just see they were already lined up to a grid system where they would already connect to a functioning in the old grid.
Wow.
So, and I was like, but that's not real. That's not really how to do it. But, you know, but I had no reference point. So there is a certain then knowing within me, which at the same time was guiding me what it is that I was going to do. So a lot of the things like in school, like, this is not what I want, but what I do want isn't present. So I did not know what I want this because there was no reference point. So I only had this feeling. Plus, this was also very important to me, how important it is also to have a wording or to have your intention set. Because in a funny way, I could go to kindergarten myself because it was just right next to my home, and it was a Christian kindergarten. And so they shared about, and I'm not born, you know, I was not raised Christian, but it was interesting that they had the children's Bible and they talked about Jesus. And I'm like, I know that guy, you know. And I said to my mom, I want to go to Israel because I know him. And my mom said, well, that's a story. And I'm like, no, I said, no way. You've got to be kidding. It's so not true. So then I started talking to Jesus. I could not see that because I guess there was this promise, like, you go back into the world and not see anything really, you know, or talk to guides or whatever. It was just going from within, just to be able to anchor it all in the body from the feeling from within. Because I wanted to be a human. I just wanted to be just a regular human being. And all that other stuff would be too much, I don't know.
Do you still I mean,
feel.
do
Yeah.
you still see the things that you see, the visions and the connections,
Oh yeah.
and you're still
Yeah.
able to, and do you feel like you're still able to be human?
Oh
Or are you
yeah.
still trying to be human
Yeah, more and more.
more
More
and
and more.
more?
I mean, we're human. We're born in a human body, but then you have, everybody is born, or is its essence is a different type of consciousness, and sometimes certain consciousnesses don't usually incarnate in a body form, like in human type body or even elsewhere, whatever. So, but in some instances, of course, I've had other lifetimes here and in other places, but it's not very regular. So I think what happened when I was young, I was connected to this pure essence, or like the essence of me, and not necessarily connecting so much the dots with the other incarnations I have, because it was more important to connect straight to
Right.
my original essence. And so the rest was almost like a byproduct. It sounds maybe really weird, but it's not as relevant for me, because as I'm bringing light in, all the other aspects are evolving with me.
I'm surprised you made it this far without getting put into the psych ward. But yeah,
That's the thing, because I sometimes when I could get really upset, I would be really careful. Like, you don't need to go to see a doctor because they
right,
won't find anything, and
right,
just be careful. And maybe that was my fear, maybe from
yeah,
other lifetimes where maybe I was incarcerated
right,
or
right.
being seen as crazy, because I have, those memories did come up. So I was like, okay, just stay calm. And it's, again, go in your heart, breathe it out, and you transform it all. But yeah, that's been a process. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and a lot of people can identify with that here.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Yeah.
you've
Yeah.
been following it. But I want to go back to the playground, because
Yeah.
you said something that I thought was really interesting. So you're on the playground, you
Yeah.
look at a child, you
Yeah.
can see their path or their trajectory.
Yeah.
You can see where they're going to fit into
Yeah.
this grid. And
Yeah.
I think you must be talking about like what we might call the matrix. Let's just say the
Yeah.
Earth matrix.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. When I saw that
Now,
movie, I was like, I
yeah,
see, I know what you're talking about. That's not, I know what
okay.
you're talking about. Anyway, go ahead.
No. So no. Yeah, I'm glad you said that. So now I guess where I'm going with this is, so you could see the path that they were headed on. Would
Yeah.
you, I mean, and there's no right or wrong answer. I'm
No.
just curious. Would you see that as what their soul chose, or would you see that as uh, their soul came in more like you, uh, with some kind of innate knowing, and that they kind of got hijacked in some way, or,
Um,
or
no, not necessarily, because this is the thing where it's all a collaboration anyway.
right, right,
Everything is a collaboration. So I mean, I didn't know that right away, because you're still wondering, what is it? You need to make, from a human perspective, you still need to make sense of everything. So it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of energy, but it's like this instant, like, wow, because I could feel like the energies. I was like, wow, this is not me. Like, why? For me, it's like, why don't I choose the simple route? Because that's easy. You're just plugged in and you're done. You don't need to do, basically don't need to think for yourself anymore. That's how I interpreted it. It took me years to discover, right? To figure out, like, okay, it is all in divine order. Some beings choose to have this experience, because if we wake up all at the same time, don't you think it would be extreme chaos? Like, we need to lay down, you cannot
yeah.
upload. Nobody wants to
That's a good point.
ever do
That's a good
anymore.
point.
So it's all in balance. It's
Yeah.
all, we're waking up like an orchestra doesn't start to play all at the same time. It sounds awful.
Do you think that, of course, we know this time has been talked about at least for the last 6,000 years. If we go back to the Sumerians, uh, Egypt, Mesopotamia, Babylonia, and so on, in the Bible and everything, that this time period had been prophesized. In some of those prophecies, they talk about 1,000 years of a golden age or 2,000 years of a golden age or whatever. Do you, what's your feeling on that? Do you feel like that we're going to experience what you might call heaven on earth to that extent in the physical bodies?
Wow. So I feel um, we're never going to go back in the same way, but we're integrating. And at the same time, I just know, it's just my knowing
Right.
that we're integrating so much of various universes, because the universe is expanding and it's also integrating. So whatever had been happening so far, that job is done. I mean, that thing is done. So, but we learn from it. It's all in learning. We're still learning from it. So with that given, a whole new, I would say a whole new kind of type of human being start to be born, start to be present with, you know, with far beyond.
Like these children, like these
Yeah, like,
children,
and
they're
to
coming
me
in
it
now.
feels, yeah, to me it feels it's just far beyond what's been before. And it's not
Yeah.
to say like that it is less, because it's
Right.
like it's
Right.
all back then that was the furthest ahead, and we're moving creation forward. That's like inherent to
Right.
creation.
Right.
So it's
Now that
gonna
makes
be
sense. That
completely
makes
something
sense.
new.
And like, it makes sense that we're gathering more and more code, more and more information, and that's altering. It'd be like, if you landed on the planet today as a child and you're like Franco was, and you
Mm.
had full, or even like you did to an extent, you have full recollection of many lives on other planets and how things work. And there's more people that are attuned to that, like these young kids that are coming in, and they have memories of what planet they're from and what they did on that planet and all this stuff. Um, and I just and I wonder, because so many of us in our age groups have done a lot of shadow work and zero pointing work,
Yeah.
and we've raised our frequency, so we're getting more information. But like in your case, because of your journey and your awareness from such a young age, are you seeing in yourself an expansion of your higher sensitivities, of your magic, of your alchemy, and even of your life, like with those who you interact with and maybe your work and stuff? Are you seeing?
Oh, yes, and yes, and for me, it's let's say it's like kind of ups and downs, but the to me it's like I like to travel through like a mountainous area. So it's like it's an amazing experience. Every experience is amazing. So it's like it's like fluctuating quite a bit. But to me, every experience is equally important.
Yeah.
So, and somehow, I'm curious. I tend to see go to certain extremes, and maybe there's a reason for it. I don't need to know everything. That's also what I intended. Like, I don't need to know everything. I just want to do exactly what I'm here for. I want to bring the light in. As a child, I was speaking to the Jesus, right? This is what I want. This is what I want. I don't even know what I want, but this is from inside. This is all I want. So
Yeah.
even not knowing. So going back now, like say, I really love to be in a job. I'm an artist. I'm a goldsmith. I've been a teacher, doing administrative jobs, but everything is related to my work, my being, and maybe my past lives, whatever. So everywhere I'm going, I'm being me.
Yeah.
So let's say I worked for agencies, and I just like wherever there's a job for me, I just trust I need to be there because I'm just connecting with people. The job doesn't even make sense anyway. It's just like a lot of the time I'm just like, I don't even know how people hire me because I have no freaking idea what I'm doing. But
They probably wouldn't know either if they stopped and thought about it. It's just
yeah,
it's that invisible, agenda or plan or
yeah,
thread.
and this is like, even I worked for a psychiatric hospital, for instance, to like erase people's very old files, and they were going to be used for for scientific research, for research thing. So it was, it was like in the 90s, so we had to erase like by hand. But then I needed to read all the papers, and I was like, wow, these people have past life experiences from Atlantis. So I'm just being in touch with the people who maybe already
Wow.
passed away. So I'm just connecting to them and their spirit to release them from that stuff.
Wow.
So, and then I walk outside, and then one of the people who live in the psychiatric hospital, they live there all their life, they start to say hi to me, and they know my name. It's like, I never see them. I've never seen them. They cannot know my name. How can they say hi to me and call me by my name? I mean, I had these interesting experiences.
Well, that's something that I think we're going to see a change in, because so many of the people in these communities have been labeled at some time in their life as being crazy. Many have been in the psych ward or been incarcerated. And anyone that has had any interactions in the psychiatric, in the psychiatric world, these people see things that we talk about on this show. Exactly. But for them, it's an everyday experience. So I can totally get that you walk out of the building after doing that work and somebody comes up and knows your name, because at some level, there's a telepathy or something that they have access to. I think about this a lot with even like in my own life, like say with Morgan, the telepathy is coming online more and more and more. It's almost like, and even doing these shows, there's times I come on the show. It's like today with you. I could swear I'm telling myself the whole time, I know we've done a show before. But we haven't. But there's something clicking. So it's almost like we're meeting when we sleep.
Yeah.
And then we come here, and maybe it's not fully conscious, but there's some type of carryover from when we call, what we call dream state.
Yeah, that's also how let's say if I travel, I'm like, I look at the map, and it's also, when you travel by yourself, for instance, I want to be safe, I want to know where I'm going, blah, blah, blah. But then that's from the human part, but then also like I'm already implanting my energy there. So when I'm there, I feel like everything is already lining up.
Yeah.
So then people are welcoming me, and it's like, when I was younger, and I think maybe because I'm Dutch, we're quite sober and everything. We're quite like, if you just act normal, you're already crazy enough. So, so I like to be kind of down to earth, even though I was kind of like all over the place at the same time. But I just really wanted to make it understandable for me, and bring it real, basically. So yeah.
You talked about like the experience with the flower, where the 0 point was still in the flower, and you were able to basically go through it, and I guess in a way travel or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Do you think that, and there's no wrong answer, I'm just curious, do you think that we are close, or I don't know what the right word is, that we'll be able to teleport while we're in the physical body? Like rather than just the light body going, but the whole physical.
So yes, I do believe that. But I think it's not like an end goal for this lifetime.
Right.
And I feel like, which I know, let's say there was this old grid which was dysfunctional, so it could be, if it would be possible, it could be dangerous to get stuck in, because it was, the system is like crooked, basically. And this new grid is just pretty new. And I think there's some parts of the old grid that are still there. That's why there's still confusion and people are still feeding it. So there's not everywhere, it's being how do you say, detangled. Is that the word?
Right.
But it's not everywhere. Disentangled, yeah, that's the word. So, but anyway, I don't know if that will happen in our lifetime, but maybe there are pockets,
Yeah.
So it's interesting you mention this, because I actually had my own experience, not necessarily to teleport, but I have experienced in a certain place on the planet where I was, I was chatting with my friend, and she saw me dissolve, and I wasn't aware of it, that happened to me. Only when I came back, and she said, "Did you realize what just happened?" And I said, "What?" She said, "I saw you just disappear." And the moment I was like, I heard that before from others, and I'm like, yeah, that's just in the meditation, and you see a fog and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, sober me, right? I'm like, whatever, I, just, I'm not goofing out about it. But then I looked at my arm, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to touch myself, and I'm disappearing.
Wow.
So it's happening.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I've seen Morgan shapeshift many times.
Yeah.
I've seen other people morph, before my eyes. Early in my awakening, I saw a couple of different people actually change, like, I guess, morph, basically, back and forth. But
and this took a while, because I was in a very high energy place, and I was brought myself in a pretty high energy.
Yeah.
And so basically I couldn't sleep that night, because I had to hold myself onto something, because I was constantly disappearing.
Really?
Not
Where do you know where you were going?
No, because I think it was just more going into pure consciousness, because I thought I was still talking. So
almost like your hologram was disappearing.
Yeah, my body was dissolving, basically. But I can imagine that this is one of the things, when you teleport, you start dissolving in one place and you reappear somewhere
That's what
else.
I'm talking about.
Exactly.
That's what I'm talking about.
And this line, everything needs to be perfectly, the highway needs to be cleared. If it's not clear, or if it's not fully functioning,
See, there's just no coincidences. It's like the things I experience, and then the person I'm talking to the next day on the show brings back what I was experiencing, like last night. Like last night, I had what I would call, a very high level communion or connection or dimensional experiences, or however you want to put it. And that was, and the other thing was, for some reason, because I mean, the Jesus consciousness has been big in many people's lives, and mine included, but I don't visit it often. But last night I was connecting to it, and then from there it went into kind of a traveling scenario. Obviously this involved Morgan. This was where my thoughts were. And I saw some things and experienced some things. I haven't even talked to her, because I haven't talked to her today. But I experienced some things that I'd never experienced before, which I could only describe, and I guess I have, but not to this degree, which I would call remote viewing. I would call it teleportation. There was more than just my consciousness that went, but somehow or another, there was a physical part of me that seemed to go. And so now I'm talking to you about it, and I'm going, oh, maybe I'm not crazy. Now, you seem to be very, very sensitive and aware, obviously from a young age. And you spoke a couple of times about the grid, the old grid and the new grid. Are you able to see, like, the old grid and the new grid? Are you able to see like how are we doing? How much of the new grid is in place? I love the fact that you said there's still pockets of the old grid and so on, but can you give us any details on that?
Yeah, to me it feels, because I can feel it like around me, because it's also around us, and to me that new is complete, and it's being kept on being, the structure is complete, but it's being created still by us, right? When we're
Right.
more we connect to it, we create this connectivity and get stronger and stronger, like an immune system.
Would you say that like and I know this is all metaphoric, right? I mean, it's just imagery. We try to explain these things, but would you say that like the new grid is built around the old grid, and the old grid's deconstructing or disentangling?
Yeah, you could say that. You could say, yeah, that's it. Yeah, you could say that. To me, how I interpret it, or kind of feel it, it's like I feel the new earth grid maybe even a bit more expanded.
Yeah, that's what
And
I
the
meant.
old is more like, it's like
That's
this
what I meant.
it's
Yeah.
like almost like metallic or so. It's like, it just feels like.
Sometimes I wonder if, because that's how I feel. I feel like the new grid is kind of wrapped around, like you have the earth as a sphere, and then you have the old grid, we might call the matrix or whatever.
Yeah.
And then around it is this new earth grid.
Yeah.
And I wonder sometimes if it's always been there. And like you were saying, you have this other grid that was constructed inside, and it's like the whole game, and I know that's not a great word, but the whole trick to it, the whole game, the whole purpose, or whatever you want to call it, was to always break through, like to not like, okay, if you do that, you win. But in other words, that was how we expand. And it was kind of like an obstacle course that was put up so we could work on our skills and abilities. And
I get what you're saying, because I think the whole, in the old grid, in the old system, it was like you would never get there, right? Heaven was somewhere to reach out for, and you almost there and you're never going to get there.
Right.
But it's almost like giving you busy to give you hope. But you would never ever reach there. And that would like be the emotion that you could, like an emotional relief or an emotional feeling, right? So I think with the old grid, you would always be stuck. I mean, that was part of the belief system.
Right.
So it just needed to be disentangled, because if we would not have a reconnection with our true self, we could go down the drain with everything. Basically, that's what I feel. So I feel with the new grid, we're being born from the essence, and our essence is already connected through our heart, and because of that we can reconnect, and that's how we were able to pierce through. And the old way is like giving hope and pray to the whoever.
If I'm a good boy, Santa
Piercing
Claus will bring me.
Exactly that. And but then if you have this, because everybody still have this little glimpse, and when you can feel like this truth from within and you go there, that's what kind of like kept your signal going to ask for the help, like, hey, we need help here, whatever. And then the signal can come in. It's kind of like that.
Have you done live videos before?
In what way do you mean?
I mean, like, have you done, have you done shows like this before?
Sometimes. Well, I just did my own, and sometimes I speak with some people. Yeah, but very rarely.
Yeah, I can see that, but you should do it more. But I mean, and all of you should, all of you, these females especially that are. So I forget what you said when you wrote to me. I can feel the energy of it. It's very much like you are now. What inspired you to want to come on?
Well, I think I felt invited, like speak up, and so I always feel like if I feel the call and I'm being invited, then I'll show up.
Yeah.
So that's it. I don't have any.
So how does a day in the life of Irene go in November 2021?
Oh my gosh.
How does it work?
It's kind of funny, right? So I am me anyway, right? So I just love to have a day job. So since a couple of months, I work for health insurance agency
Mm.
because, I love to have some money to live. And that's why I choose that. And the thing is, I just love it so much. It's just, I get to connect with people who unexpectedly connect with me. They were not looking for me,
Mm.
but I connect with them like a surprise. And they're so thankful that they talk to me because I want to help them out. And also, I think I want to bring in some, even though it's like a corporate whatever, or financial whatever, I just want to see it the way I choose to see it. So whatever we're here in this new support system, even though it's still in the old way functioning, kind of, I
Kind of.
like to I like to get to the edge of like, hey, maybe there's something
Yeah.
new out there. So I
Yeah.
just go into the wherever company, whatever, I don't care. Doesn't matter. I just wherever I come, change happens. It's like, oh my gosh. The moment you allow me in, I'm sorry. It's a done
It
deal.
just happens,
It
right?
just
Like a
happens.
tuning
It's not
fork.
you. Yeah. For
Yeah,
the
there's
better,
a
for the better or the better.
yeah. Well, sometimes the light triggers the hell out of people, so it can look like chaos, right?
Yeah,
But there's
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. So I guess that's why the way I'm functioning, it's not as intrusive or so, whatever.
I got you. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're just following
yeah,
the yellow brick road, right?
yeah,
Yeah, that's an interesting point too, because a lot of times you see, we see in the God, I hate these labels, but like in the light worker communities or whatever, starseed communities, you see these statements made that are basically, in my opinion, like blocking energy. Like,
yeah.
like,
Oh yeah,
you know what I
oh yeah,
mean? Like
oh
you know what I mean? So it's
yeah,
like one of those things would be, I'm not going to go into a 3D environment because it has been a struggle for many empaths to go to the supermarket or
yeah,
go work in an environment.
yeah,
But there's a lady that's a lot like you over in Australia. She's an attorney, a lawyer, um, and her name's Geraldine Grace. And she said, I want to go into the 3D and transform it with my frequency. Just like really what you're kind of saying. And I really admire that. I know everybody does it different. Everybody
oh
has
yeah,
different roles and
oh
stuff,
yeah.
but I admire that because I think at the end of the day, we're not going to be able to avoid anything, whether it's, if we don't do it in this life,
Yeah.
then it'll probably be the next one, right? I mean,
Exactly. Yeah,
so
and
there's,
also, yeah, and true. And for me also, I love to be an artist. I love to create art,
hmm,
but it just feels like there's different moments for there are different times for different things. And I
right.
feel for my personal challenge that I choose is to not be afraid because I was freaking out also by other people because the thoughts there are bombardments. They're like bombing me literally, and that to me is like you create even more chaos in a labyrinth where you're never going to get out. So anyway, so for me, I'm just like, okay, I'm just being me. Thankfully, the world is more ready for me, so I'm not being pushed against or being hated for nothing because that was happening before. Now they say, oh my gosh, I've never heard such a friendly person ever speak to a person. And I'm like, wow, I'm just speaking the way I always speak. But
So it
in this
shows,
corporate world, it's more like fast, 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 get
yeah.
people done. These people don't know anything, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, and this is not to blame them or anything, but they start to realize seeing me, I don't have any agenda. I'm not in a rush. I'm being paid. If you don't like me, well, I don't know what happens. I don't know. This is what I need to do. And I'm now talking about me being more present.
Right.
I feel now so comfortable, like, and I guess it's also through aging, right? It's so perfect about aging that you get wiser and more like a little bit more calm about
And you don't
yourself.
give a shit.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. And when I was young, I really wanted to be 40 in my 40s very quickly because then I would be relaxing a bit more. Before that was crazy. Anyway, so they see like, well, things can be different. It's so
Right.
for one way, it gets so in such in an extreme that they start to yearn for, oh wow, what am I really doing? And I don't know how it will unfold,
Well,
and I don't even care.
I
I
love
just
the
need to
way
do my
that
thing.
go ahead. Oh,
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
there's a little bit of a lag. Okay. So I love the way that you explain everything. You know, obviously there's so much code that comes in through conversation that's not in the words,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so like picturing that illusionary grid or the old grid around the earth, picturing the new grid around that,
Yeah.
and then seeing an individual like you were describing through your own experience, kind of going through the old grid and attaching to the new grid like a bridge.
Yeah.
Right? Like a bridge. And you know, I think that's makes a lot of sense to me, especially with the people who might be, say, from, you know, 40 to 70 or 80, who had gone through all the conditioning, who would walk into a place and hear all those voices and take on all the emotions of other people that were really part of the old grid, and then, you know, finding their way
Exactly.
and going back out into it, but being a bridge now through the internal work they've done. It's a very powerful picture.
Exactly. And sometimes people have not been able to find it within their own because of pain or whatever. But then you become like an antenna or like a broadcaster. So it's like a bird that listens to the mother, or like what I felt like I was drawn to my light, and that's my divine mother, I would say, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter the name, but anyway, let's call it divine mother. You can be the broadcast to another, like, now I recognize the voice, I recognize who I truly am, that this is what I've been yearning for. And so when the yearning gets activated, that's where you want to go to.
Yeah.
So instead of staying stuck in an old, which is difficult anyway, but there's still people that, you know, we're not there. We're there and we're not there yet. It's like if everybody's included, it's like, you know, I'm the first in, I'm the last out, you know.
And they're both true at the same time,
Exactly.
which is weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So before we get out of here, I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
So I'm always curious about people like you. Like, what is the craziest, wildest, most intense spiritual experience that you've ever had?
Oh, wow. Whew. Well, there's so many.
I don't doubt that.
There's so many.
I mean, have you ever just, because it was so profound, have you ever got scared? Like, and go, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening?
Well, some things when I was more scared, which was more like, you know, whatever kind of ETs that I've seen when they were not so very kind when you're young. When I was young, and anyway, that was really scary. But thank goodness I'm over that, and that's never going to come back. And
what do you think their role was in your life? Was that a collaboration or an interference?
Well, in you know, in the bigger picture, everything is kind of like serves a purpose.
Yeah.
It's all about, we're open source, basically. So some people, you know, they can step on your toes, and they think they can just do that.
Right.
To me, I would just not do that.
Well,
but so it's all about learning and having boundaries, whatever that is. We're an open source. So and I think as we evolve more and more, you know, it's like, hey, this is not a deal. When if you're messing around with toddlers, and you know, you're at some moment, it's like, hey, you got to cut the crap. You know, that's not what you
that's interesting too, because I've had my own experiences with what people might call dark energy or whatever. I don't look at it that way. I had that happen in October.
Right.
And and it was a very expanding experience. But you know, it's interesting because even if you're dealing with, or I found in listening to someone like you, we can be in control of our power with a non-physical, or let's say a interdimensional being. Yet here we are faced in the world with finding our power with things that are far less threatening, such as governments, and you know what I mean? So it's interesting that, and here we go again with what's up is down, and right. I mean, you know, it's both are true at the same time thing.
Yeah.
But it's just an interesting thing to think about, that, you know, the same thing applies. We can stand in our sovereignty and our power
and
in
it's
any
much
dimension, any timeline.
exactly, and it's much easier because we're bringing in more light. When you're more in your body, you know, you're more the light is in your body, the less, you know, difficult it is, so to speak.
What do you
Yeah.
think's going to happen? I mean, I know it's nobody can predict anything, but how do you think this thing's going to roll
Wow.
over the next year or two? Do you see a lot more of the new grid materializing and the old grid deconstructing, and just very
Yeah.
incredible things happening?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Because they keep continuing on, like you know it yourself, because you know, right? We all feel that when we're listening in, we know we all feel
Yeah,
it.
you're right.
It's just the way you can you know, we're learning to interpret it, and how is it relating to your own life, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes like it's so much like I don't even care how it relates to me. It's just coming in. I just want to have a good time today. You know?
Yeah, there's more and more
We're humans
people.
after all.
Yeah, there's
You know,
more
we
and
have
more
a human
people.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The-
Go ahead.
yeah, it's all right. We made it through.
Yeah.
There's more and more people that are listening to their internal guidance,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you can see it. You don't
Yeah.
get 100,000 people marching in Melbourne last
No.
weekend that were just not in their power. So there's something about
Yeah.
that, and which so
Yeah.
many of us in these communities we can
Yeah, and
relate
it's
to.
worldwide, right? It's happening simultaneously everywhere. And like every country has its own background, its own consciousness, its own evolution.
Yeah,
And I
true.
think coming back to the Netherlands, right? I feel because the Netherlands is located, is like where it is located, and maybe its history. I feel this specific geographic location and whatever's happening in this grid, we have more. I feel there's access to higher consciousness, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, in essence, I think our country, it has been always in a way about truth speaking, and like, you know, kind of like
How are the
system. Yeah.
how are the people reacting to the restrictions that are being put forth in the Netherlands? Are they marching? Are they pushing back? Or
To be really honest, I hardly look
you
at
don't
the
know?
news. But the only thing I do is sometimes read, and I'm like, oh, yeah, whatever. So I'm not really.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think it's not as much people.
Mhm.
I think people just want to get on with their lives.
Yeah.
But what I do notice, many people just want to be vaccinated just to get over with, you know,
Yeah.
even if it doesn't matter if they're against or not, they just want to be vaccinated. You know,
This,
there's the vaccination rule is the solution. And now it's a little bit more like the unvaccinated people, like they're now the danger. They're the ones that that are like the whatever.
last question. Do you feel like, I know that we're all one, and that somewhere it all started somewhere, and then it's the breath of the universe went out, and here we are.
Yeah.
But do you feel that we have, let's just say, non-physical soul family or aspects of ourselves that are helping us and assisting us?
Oh yes.
Yeah. Does it feel like there's more of them in the room than there
Oh
was? Like, do you feel like there's, you
oh
know what I mean? I feel like
oh
there's more and more and more coming. Like I
see it all
just,
the time.
do
It's
you
not
really?
necessarily like sometimes, you know, within my makeup, usually I don't see it like literally with my eyes open, like literally in my room.
Mhm.
But like sometimes when I just like, for instance, now I can just feel like this like whole presence of
There you
light.
go. There's your confirmation with the little bell going off.
Yeah, it's okay. So yeah, a lot of the times when I just a little bit tune in, I can see like
Yeah.
usually it's like right in front of me, like a whole whatever group, you know, what's it called? Like a collective. No, that's
Yeah.
not the word.
Like a monad.
Yeah, like a monad or like I forget the name. It's okay, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Um,
Soul family.
yeah, or like a group that you work with, right? That
Yeah. Yeah.
like it's maybe a type of governance or so, or like, it's not in the old way, whatever, but
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
a certain overseers or so,
Yeah.
you know?
Like an oversoul group or a monad
Yeah,
group.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I've been getting that. But I've noticed that, especially this month, when I go to bed and I connect, there's more stuff is happening. Like, but it's not just that there's more stuff that's happening. It's just like I can see more. Like,
Yeah.
and one of the things that's been happening the last few nights has been and I can see things sometimes, but
Yeah.
in the last few nights it hasn't been with my eyes, but I can feel them and I can kind of see them. And there's just a bunch. There's just a lot, and
Right.
there's more than ever. I mean, so
Yeah.
that's something that I just wanted to ask you about. I wondered if other people were how they felt about it. So
Yeah.
we'll have to do this again sometime.
Sure.
I'm really happy that you reached out. And on that note, any of you out there, particularly the women, but certainly the men who have awakened and allowed and accepted their feminine to come in. I mean, this is very important to get these stories out. So anybody that's interested, soulogynetwork@gmail.com, to include our new friend from yesterday, Joanne Ferganando. If you want to come on and tell your story, Nathan Bucci, I've seen you out here for years. Paola Vanderberg, I've seen your name out here for years. Any of you that would like to step forward, Heather Nielsen, Xana, I bug you and bug you and bug you, but Sita Devi, any of you that want to come on and tell your story, these stories have, in my opinion, they have more code in them than any downloads or any transmissions that we get. There's something about being gods and goddesses in the flesh at this point in our existence that provides really unlimited code and growth opportunities. So I just want to thank you, Irene, and maybe we can get together after the first of the year and
Sure.
and see what's going on, see how different it is.
Yes. And I'd like to say one more thing about your show and about being present with one another. I really feel this is very helpful in feeling rejuvenated. And this is one of the ways where this is our true immune system, to
Yeah.
feel connected, to feel your just love, just being human, and being allowing your presence to be there, and this is your true human. And I think this is really profound and fun, and everybody, you know, we've already made it.
Yeah,
So
I agree
already
with that.
made it, the planet already made it, and now it's the journey. How is it going to unfold? And for everybody, you know, is a beautiful piece of cake, even if it doesn't look so good right now.
Yeah.
That's, you know, sooner or later you will, you know, reap the fruits from it, and it's going to be extremely sweet. I can assure you.
Thank you very much.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate that. It's
you
a
so much.
pleasure to meet you or get reacquainted and remember you.
Yes.
Thank you
it's
so
been-
much. And we might be back later tonight. I really feel like we will, with some kind of impromptu thing. I'll try to talk Morgan into coming on with me or something, or maybe we'll do an open mic or something. But yeah, I feel like it's important now that we, get up off the couch and get on the screen and just try to share this information. You said it so well right there. So thank you. I love you. All blessings to you and yours. And we'll see you guys later. Thank you, Irene.
Bye.
Bye-bye.